Hey, hey. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the stream. The first art stream we've had in quite some time. I am here with Michael, our producer, who might chime in here and there.
Hi.
Hi. But otherwise, I'm here to answer any questions y'all have. Hopefully the audio is okay and you can all hear me and see what's on the screen. Got a few people in so far. A lot of the usuals. Hey guys. All right, so yeah, it looks like you can all see what I'm looking at, which is great.
Whoa, what is that, Sandy?
So what we're looking at here is a new boss, and it is in progress, but I'm gonna kind of go through the steps of what I've been working on, where I'm at right now in the process, and kind of how we started and got to where we're at now. So on the top right here, you can see this is our game design document, and and so this is where it all started. The mock-up at the top is something that Alec put together, showing kind of the direction we wanted to take this boss. So it's for the Astrtal Orrery area, and I'm sure, as some of you may have seen, it's kind of a spacey, cosmic themed location. And the idea for this boss is that there are some mysterious happenings both on land in Tenebrous Isle and up in the Orrery. It seems like if you talk to NPCs in town, some of them mention some people being potentially abducted or having gone missing. And so we wanted to imply that where some of those NPCs may have gone is taken to the Orrery by some of the astral cultists that are there. They're like academics that experiment with spark technology, and they have been experimenting on these NPCs. And so this boss is kind of an amorphous blob that is made up of the bodies of a bunch of various creatures, some human, some not, some animal. And before you fight it, you see them kind of merge together and form this creature. So you can see that we wanted the sprite to be mostly black because we wanted to imply a lot of form and be able to manipulate the shapes of this creature. It's not like, it doesn't have a rigid skeletal structure like a regular animal would. It's able to change its shape at will to suit the attacks or the movement that it's about to go into. So unlike a lot of our other bosses, it's mostly a black sprite, and we're highlighting the boss with red and blue. And I'll go through some of the references that we started with before I started going to do sprite work. But on the left here, you can see this is that mock-up that's in the GDD. And this was just my very, very first pass at trying to put some shapes together based on this. But before I even got here, I'll show you what we started with. So in our discussions about the lore and what we wanted the art to look like, we were talking about some reference material that we could pull from. So there's like the Violator from Spawn was one concept that got talked about. Just the way that it's like kind of hard to tell what it's made of. It's like kind of goopy and got loose skin and mottled bumps and stuff all over. It's really creepy. Like, its jaw's kind of unhinged and it looks like it's able to, I don't know, it looks alien, right? There's also Princess Mononoke had this creature kind of in the beginning that, for those who've seen the movie, underneath was a boar, but it was a corrupted boar, and so it had all these like diseased, cursed worm-like things all over its body, and it was able to create new limbs to help it move faster. So that was one thing we were thinking that would be cool. Alien, you can see here the xenomorph's got that like red highlight on it with some blue in the shadows, similar to what we were going for in the sprite. This, what is it, Titanite Beast, I think it was called, from Dark Souls, was another inspiration. We wanted this boss to kind of feel like you're fighting a Souls boss, so it's got to move around really fast. And, got these cool horn-like iconography that we could work into both the level and the sprite to kind of connect them a little bit thematically. Morgan posted this one of Venom, 90s Venom, with this red and blue highlight. This is like the perfect reference. So this became our go-to for the lighting and color palette of this sprite. And this is where we ended up. So this is Morgan's concept. He did a bunch of them, but this ended up being the one that we liked the most and we thought fit the theme. You can see it's got the lighting, it's got the kind of like amorphous shapes and a bunch of faces throughout. So it looks, like a sad mashup of creatures that have been experimented on and mutated. Now, my first thought, obviously, is someone who's going to have to sprite this, and what it's like, I don't know, a little more than 64 by 64 pixels. It's going to be really hard to get this amount of detail into a sprite and actually make it readable. So I tried to simplify the forms a little bit, and I also wanted to make sure that you could distinguish where all the limbs are in the character, because the GDD shows that, and we'll go through this a little bit more, but it's got a whole bunch of moves. It's got swipes, so it can, swing its arms back and forth at you, do some claw attacks. It's got slam attacks from a completely different angle. It's got to be able to, it's got like spider legs at one point, and I'll go into that in a bit. It's got to be able to run. It's got to be able to walk. So it was important for a sprite, especially one that's, not super huge, that you could easily read where all the limbs are and take stock of that when you're fighting it. So I simplified the forms there a little bit. And let me just check and see if we have any questions, because I've been bursting through this pretty quickly. But
the only one I've caught so far is from Regiot, which is about what you think the faces are gonna do during its animation.
Are they gonna, right? Okay. Are we gonna have faces? The faces fade in during its intro animation and fade out. That would be super cool. If this was not Game Boy, I would absolutely spend way more time animating the faces moving in and out. And there might be a way to do that actually that would work. So maybe, I'll show you where I ended up, and we can see how well this fits the spec. So I went through a bunch of iterations. This was my first one, just blocking out the forms, but there are no faces or anything, right? And so I started adding faces in there, just trying to see where I could add more detail. This just felt way too detailed to me, and it was hard to kind of read the forms. So I went through a bunch of iteration. This is where I ended up after a lot of pushing things around. So some of the faces are maybe a little subtle or harder to discern than others, but I think that's okay. I think ultimately the idea is to just show that this thing is not like any real creature that you would find on the island. It's clearly like, alien or demonic in nature. It's got that horn motif. It's got weird horns here, like Violator kind of. It's got like teeth that are sticking out on the sides. It's got pieces of bone all around it, so it's made up of all those creatures, and it's kind of like pushing its bones throughout its body in order to change its shape. Got little legs that are pushed back, so you can kind of imply that it's leaning forward at you. Get some perspective in there. And got some faces. So there's one, two, a little one right there. And then I wanted to highlight just a handful of them on top where like light might be hitting the most. So these ones are kind of more implied, but then these ones throughout the fight, you'll see them kind of change their expression a little bit, or be the ones that are, I guess, more in control of like this creature or something. But yeah, hopefully it's gruesome and terrible and nasty, because that's definitely the intention here. Lemtopia asks, do you use a mouse or a tablet? What do you recommend for someone that has both? I use both, actually. In fact, I am using both right now. I'm holding my mouse while my stylus is in my hand. I have just developed a process that makes it most comfortable for me to switch between the two. When I first started, I used a mouse only, and then I switched to tablet, and at first it felt weird, but then, you know, for making strokes like this, I mean, it's just way faster with a tablet than it would be with a mouse, at least for me, and I'm sure most people that use a tablet would agree. But yeah, I use both because then for little details, you know, like if I'm dithering or something, using a mouse is a lot faster. To be fair, my mouse right now is really bad. It like sticks and lags all the time. I need to get a new one, I think. But that's beside the point. So yeah. Okay.
Sandy, there was one other question from earlier that I missed, which was, is this the final form of that red-blue character from that stream a couple months ago?
Oh my God. How dare anybody bring that up? The answer is clearly yes. Red and blue.
100%.
We've been foreshadowing this whole time. What, for the past like year something when I made that? Yes, definitely. That was all intentional. So from here, I did a quick idle animation from this downward facing pose, and then I did a 3/4 facing pose because we ended up needing that too for this fight. So I'm not sure exactly where it said it, but what we were referencing as far as other enemies that we already had in the game. Yeah, thank you, Michael. Thank you for posting that. I'll post it for anyone who's watching this VOD later. But this is what we're talking about. Discord has not let me forget that I did this in 2 seconds when I was illustrating how we tend to use our sprite restrictions, but also separate swaths of color in bigger sprites, like this head. And the head and the body can have different colors, even though they both fall under the 4-color tile restriction that we use, because they're kind of split at this like middle point. As long as there's a split that's like defined, you can get away with different colors like that. Anyway, moving on to the topic at hand, we ended up needing to support 2 angles for this enemy in order to do all of the attacks and things required. So here's the downward facing one. Here's a little idle animation of it just breathing some nasty putrid smoke. And then I did a 3/4 angle so we could do all kinds of cool stuff. And you can see the mouths of the faces kind of open a little more too as its own mouth opens. So there's the idle. So from there, the first thing I did is the walk cycle. And as I mentioned, this guy needs a walk and a run because it's going to, do like a slow lumbering crawl toward Mina throughout most of the fight. But then at certain points, it's going to kind of aggro and dash at her. So this dashing leap attack. Boss gets on its hind legs, quickly shifts back, roars, and then leaps forward into a run. So here's, oop, that's not that one. Here's this walk cycle. And it's got more frames than I would normally do for a Game Boy sprite, but I think for something like this, I was comfortable bumping the frame count just a little bit. This is 6 frames. Normally I would want to keep something like this to 4, but because it's a slow walk, the fewer frames you have on a slower animation, the more popping you're gonna see. Like, I guess that's not a great example. Let's see if it was something like that. You know, it still works, but things are just moving a little bit faster than I'd like, especially since this is supposed to be pretty slow. But that's actually not too bad. I might end up going back to 4. We'll see. But for now, I've got this. And so this is what the boss will be doing most of the time. And then once it aggroes into its dashing leap, it'll do something more like this. So more like I can actually, it'd be better if I could show you this looped. Let me delete some frames. So more like a lumbering run that like a quadruped would do. And keep in mind, these animations are not finished yet. So these are just me doing mock-ups as I'm putting together all these animation states. And for a sprite that's this big, I decided to try and just block everything out, all the animations out first, to make sure that they all work and I have all the frames that I need. And then I'll go back and polish them as the final phase. So a lot of this is still a little bit rough, but it'll get polished soon. So you can see what I was doing here is trying to mock up this dashing leap attack where, as the spec says, gets on its hind legs, shifts back a little bit, roars, and then leaps into a run. And then what's supposed to happen is it can go into its slam attack. And it's got a few different slam attacks. It's got one where it just creates a little shockwave, like a little blast impact on the ground. And it's got another where where is that one? It sticks its claws into the ground. Oh, okay. So this is actually something that's not documented in the GDD visual mockups, but it's something that I talked with Alec about, where instead of just having like its hands like this slamming into the ground, we decided it's going to stick its claws into the ground because it's going to go into like a strafe attack with its claws on the ground and scrape along the surface, leaving like sparks and stuff flying all around, and those will damage Mina if she gets too close. So for this mock-up, it does its run, then goes into the slam, and I just added at the end the claw version of it. So it's got its big meaty claws sticking up in a gorilla pose and slams him down. And here's a slam with fists. Look at that. So scary and dangerous. Oh. Here's Alex mock-up with the hands. And I can show... I actually have the mock-up on a layer, so you can see the big hands covering the attack box here. And then I should probably make these ones a little bit bigger, but and slamming down, and the attack box being being about that size. So it's filling the space with the big meaty hands. Yeah. Another thing I'll note, actually, and this is not something I normally do either, but because this boss has a bunch of big limbs and they're a little bit hard to make out when animating because of like all the black and everything, I separated all the limbs into their own layers for this. So I was able to animate them separately, and that actually helped a lot when getting the motion down. Same thing here. Oh, that mock-up. Yeah, sorry, Alec. I didn't have that one ready. Very good. Yeah, I'll show it in a sec. This is what Alec's talking about, and so that's what informed this pose. Very helpful. Very good. Yeah, Alec stopped over and got a mani-pedi on his way to work the other day. Just gonna do a quick scroll through on Discord. Yes, I did mocap for this boss. No, dark tone, not my dog. It was me. That's how I lumbered to the kitchen to get coffee. Will the scraping claws go below the ground and interrupt damage and a burrowed Mina? Let's check the GDD and see. So, let's see. Claw smash. Boss gets up on their hind legs and holds their hands above. They can hold their hands up for a short duration, around 1 second, or a long duration, around 2 seconds. They gradually slide toward Mina during this, up to a couple tiles. The boss slams their big claws down, creates a damaging ring. It spawns ring lines, can be jumped over and burrowed under, so that's referring to the lines. It doesn't say that it pops Mina out of her burrow or whether she can burrow under. My guess, though, is that you will not be able to burrow under these claws. I think the intent is that the claws go into the ground a little bit and like sparks are shooting out from them while they're in the ground. So this is probably a no burrow zone. But that is something that we'll have to discuss when this goes to programming. The faces on the back, they don't do anything. They're not gonna like shoot out projectiles from their mouths. That would be cool though. Seems like a missed opportunity. But this boss is pretty complicated as it is. I think they're just there to imply that this boss is made up of a bunch of smaller creatures. There is going to be an attack, and I can actually show a mock-up of that, where at certain points little creatures will get like tossed off of the boss sprite and then spawn on the ground and run around. So that'll help sell the idea also. Okay, so, sorry. Donut asks, how tricky is it to clean up those in progress sprites when you're blocking in poses? Well, a little tricky. We'll do some of that today, depending on how much time we have. But yeah, I'll definitely go over it. Basically, stuff like this. I've got these horns here, right, on the back, and when it shifts its weight, the horns are gonna have to move. So I just kind of have to think, well, okay. I mean, I don't have a reference in front of me of anything with horns like in this perspective. So I just have to think, okay, well, if it shifts its way forward, the horns are going to move you know, with the body downward, and the shape, like this twist that's happening right here, I know that the base of the twist is going to shift up with the weight as well. And then that means that the top of the twist is going to be like that, but I'll be able to see more of the top of it, I guess. So I just kind of, I don't know, I eyeball it until it until it looks right. Something like that. And then if it like moved forward even more, I could just rotate the base, right? Sorry that I'm drawing over the boss sprite. I know it's a little messy, but this is just kind of how I would approach it. And then I know that there's a little twist here, and then the angle would have shifted. So something like that, right? Does that make sense? But yeah, I mean, the bigger the sprite, the longer the animations take, obviously. I can get where the twist happens, should be right there, and then the twist is happening there, something like that. I don't know, it's not perfect, but it's more or less how I think about it when I'm working on all these different angles. And now I got to erase all that. Okay, so what else do I have? Another animation that we needed, that I was working on yesterday, is the spider strafe. And so what needs to happen before the strafe is it needs to grow spider legs, kind of like this one. They just like shoot out of its body, and then its abdomen needs to like raise up off the ground a little bit, because the legs are supporting more of its weight. And all this needs to happen after the claw attack. So it does its claw slam, then it's in this pose, and then, can y'all see? Oh, it grows its nasty spider legs. This was really fun. I was like, I had no idea how I was going to do this when reading the GDD, but I was excited to attempt it. And all the blinking that's happening is really just because it's kind of a Game Boy thing. I could have added a lot more frames to just make the whole thing one, like a super smooth animation of the legs busting out and then like swinging down, but that wouldn't be very Game Boy. So instead, I made these nasty pustules to show that it's something coming out of the body and about to burst, and then they shoot out in just like a stringy arm looking frame, and then immediately after that they're in position, and the blinking is just to help sell that there's a change in it in the sprite's shape. And what I did is I started with one leg. I started with one side, so I did this leg, and then I did this leg with the exact same frame timings. So like they would shoot out at exactly the same time. Then I duplicated the legs, so they all shot out at the same time, same timings. And then I copied each leg and staggered the timings. So that's how you get them to shoot out at different times. So I didn't actually animate them shooting out separately like this. And then it grew an abdomen too, you can see, or what is this? A thorax, like a spider. So as its body weight shifts and its head and back kind of go up, its butt sticks out in the bottom to imply that it's higher now. And also I added this little detail just because I don't want to change the sprite too much throughout the fight, because one, that would get confusing, and two, you know, again, it's just Game Boy, so it shouldn't be going too crazy. But I was thinking, like, where's the mass coming from to create these legs, right? If you know, if this is where all the mass is, like right from the beginning, you see all the weird mutated bodies kind of slurp into this form. All the mass is contained in this one sprite. It's not going to get any new mass. So I was thinking that it needed to have some part of it like disappear or suck into its body in order to create these legs. So I was thinking, well, these horns aren't really doing anything. Maybe that's where they come from. So I had them blink in, suck into the body as the other legs start busting out. It's just a little detail, but I think it kind of helps sell what's going on and how this creature functions. And okay, so the actual strafe with the claws making sparks, that's what that's gonna look like. So yeah, imagine having this thing chasing Mina. If I was her, I would definitely quit adventuring then and there. Not worth it. Not worth it. Sorry, Lionel. Yeah, the boss names you can see on the left. Yep. Hey, we said from the beginning this is a horror game, right? Mina's cute, but man, I would not want to be in the world she's living in. Nasty. Yeah, boss outro is definitely the scariest. I mean, for an artist, it probably is the scariest because it's probably going to be the most complex. The contrast between smooth moments of animation and Game Boy jankiness is selling the vibe of this boss. Thank you, Regia. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's always hard because, you know, as an animator, I want to like make the smoothest, coolest looking thing I can, but then I have to remind myself a lot that no, this is Game Boy. Like most animations are 2 frames, you know. So while in Mina we're allowing ourselves to get a little bit crazier. If we go too far, it'll just break the illusion of the retro vibes. So yeah, we have to be careful and discerning where we use our extra frames. This entire cycle, because the legs are staggered, it's 15 frames right now. But the actual legs, like each leg is only 5. And I think that's okay because it's a big leg. But I am, after I deleted 2 frames from this walk cycle and it actually looked okay, I'm debating maybe making this 4. Because that would be more in line with what my expectations were initially. So we'll see. The fewer frames, the better. Will there be particles ejecting from the pustules? I swear I had an animation. Oh, okay, I know what it is. Okay, I'll show this one, but it's very rough. So just keep that in mind. It's a very rough animation. I was not going to show it because of how rough it is. But okay, so this kind of helps explain a little bit of what the boss's makeup is too. The boss has a blobby dash back. Boss does a quick back step like the Skulker. The Skulker is that bone-headed enemy that when you're fighting it, you can see in the demo because it's one of the big bruiser enemies that you can fight in the demo. There's footage online. But Mina goes to fight it, and if she attacks, it'll do like a quick skirt backward. Maybe I can find it. Anyway, it's just a backdash. But the boss is going to do something similar, but when it does it, it needs to turn into like a blobby mass, as opposed to just like the sprite itself skirting backward. Just, you know, it's instead of that, it's going to do something more like this. Bloop, turns into a blob. And when it does, occasionally some goop will shoot out of it and land and turn into a little minion. And these minions are essentially these faces all on its body, because that's what it's made of. And these will all run around the stage, and Mina can whack on them. And they're not going to, I don't believe they're going to damage the boss, but they're going to be obstacles and distractions during the fight. So that should be fun. It makes it feel like something that fundamentally shouldn't exist in the world of Mina or in reality. Yeah, cosmic horror, baby. It should not exist, and you don't want it to exist because it's terrifying. Let's see. Yeah, Doom has a lot of crazy creatures like this too. Yeah, this backdash, where is it? Yeah, I think this has too many frames right now. I'm trying to consolidate a little bit. Basically, this is a reused ready frame. So when you see this, it's about to do something, whatever it could go into. Its run, it could go into its like, you know, hind leg sort of move, or it could go into this backdash. And I wanted a kind of like an intro to blobby frame, so you can see the transition from this, you know, it's fully formed body going into blob form. This blob has a bit of direction to it, so you can kind of see the motion as it moves. This is the full blob form, and what I would do here for sure is, you know, take a bunch of these faces and add them in parts, just to sell, you know, what's going on. This definitely doesn't sell it, but you know what I mean. That the blob form is like Legion from Castlevania, just a mass of bodies. And then a reconstituting frame. I guess maybe I don't need two. Maybe it would be fine with just one. Yeah, that's probably fine. Something like that. So anyway, what I was thinking we could do today are some swipe attack mock-ups, because that is something I have not started yet. What if it got smaller after spawning minions to keep with the mass thing you did with the leg? Not a bad idea. I definitely get the logic behind that. The problem is then I would have to reanimate every other frame in the boss's animation suite, but smaller. And that would be way too much work. So don't think that's going to be possible. All right. So for the swipes, we got a bunch of attack strings. It needs to have, it looks like, 2 different swipes. So the examples that were given are, it could do just one swipe. It could do one swipe, wait a little bit, do a second swipe. So swipe 1 and 2, these are supposed to look different. So it's like swipe 1, imagine it's doing a swipe with its right arm, and then swipe 2 is the left arm. It could do left arm, or it could do right arm, long delay, right arm again, and then left arm. It could do a whole bunch of different things. And what we were referencing as far as characters we already have that do that kind of stuff is Skulker. And this is what Skulker looks like when doing swipes. So it's got a swipe 1, a swipe 2, and they both have cool smears that blink on top. And you can see that the smears are a separate frame. They're not baked into the animation, so they can blink. So this is what I would end up starting with when doing this type of thing for the boss. And then I'll do a smear frame on top after the fact. So let me get rid of these for now. Maybe I'll keep that one open because I might reference it. I'll keep this one open too. And I'll save out a new file for swipes. Yes, this thing has combos, Cisco. It's definitely going to feel more like a Bloodborne boss, I imagine, than some of the others in the game. But this is a pretty late game boss, so the difficulty should be on par with expectations. The blue, okay, Cisco asks, the blue is very similar in value to the black. What do you think it adds to the sprite? It might be hard to see depending on your monitor. And so that is a very good question, and I can show you what we plan to do with it. The blue is meant to just be a highlight color that we're probably going to shift quite a bit throughout the fight. So if I do something like this, I'm not sure how well it's showing up on stream, but this is probably what it's going to look like throughout the whole fight. Kind of like there's a light flickering in the stage, in the arena. And so these highlights can change depending on what's going on. Like, let's say flames, you know, erupt suddenly in the arena you're fighting, and it could be something like this, you know. Anyway, that's the intention. So it might be a little bit hard to see right now. You're definitely right that the blue is pretty dark, but we could easily lighten it up at various points in the fight. Okay, so the swipe needs to be from a 3/4 angle. So let's start here, and I think I'm gonna turn the shadow off. Yeah, I don't need it for now. You guys can't see the rest of my UI, but I've got a bunch of layers I'm working with. So if you don't see my mouse doing much, that's in the layers tab probably. Now one thing I'm gonna do is I don't actually have the limbs separated in this mockup. So I'm actually going to separate the arms only at the elbow as opposed to at the shoulder, because the shoulder is easier to move on its own when as like attached to the base body. And I'll just remove that arm from there. And then the back arm, same thing. Honestly, I get the sense that this boss observes the conservation of mass that Resident Evil villains do. Yeah, I mean, we're making the attempt. At least I'm thinking about it, but there's only so much we can do without, you know, reanimating a ton of stuff. I think in 3D it might be a little bit less work because you can just shrink and grow stuff much easier. Are you going to have any of the constituent enemies of this floating and ominous tanks full of mad science liquid in the arena leading up to the fight? Yeah, we're definitely going to have a bunch of little floating tank mutants and mutants kind of strewn on the ground looking sad and pitiful. We'll make sure there's enough visual indication of what's going on in the area before you actually get to the boss arena. You're right, Cisco. Yeah, you wouldn't. We're not gonna flicker the color of the black of the sprite. That's what the highlights are for. Can you see how I'm organizing the layers? Yeah. Let me just take a quick screenshot because it's a little. I don't have it set up in OBS to show the layers. I apologize for that, actually. I didn't realize that the layers would be useful to see, but I can see that they probably would be in this case. So I'll just show a picture. All right. So this is what it looks like. Front arm. Oh, which one is this? I've got something weird turned on. Oh, never mind. I know why. So, front arm, front leg. The head has its own layer too, but in this frame, it's attached to the beast body. The beast layer is just the body. Back arm here and back leg. So can turn off just the legs if I want. So doing that just helps me keep track of the whole thing. And then the hitbox layer is for these frames where I was actually trying to like fill the space. The red box is the hitbox. So turn off the VFX layer that I have, and then filling the space back there. Did you add any new colors to the palette, like with Shovel Knight? Yeah. So this palette is completely custom. It does borrow some NES colors. It also borrows colors that we color picked directly from some of our favorite Game Boy Color games, and a few of them are also completely custom that we just, we were putting together levels and stuff, and we were like, hey, we need a color that contrasts well with another one that we're using. And so at the time we just were like, okay, we're gonna see how many more we could add, and this is the final tally. What program is this? This is Cosmigo's ProMotion NG. That is what we use at Yacht Club and what we used on Shovel Knight. Does this game have any text item environmental storytelling, like journals found in a ruined building or safety signs printed on a laboratory wall that you read by interacting with them? It does. Yeah, things like signs telling you where in the world you are, like at a crossroads or something. Definitely some inspectable items throughout the world at various points that'll either enlarge and show you just a bigger version of like a bigger visual of what the art would look like, or just text telling you what the sign says, or what like a plaque on like a test tube or something might say. So yes. Okay, so I got the arms, and I guess I want to separate the leg probably too, just this one. And again, sorry that you can't see my layers tab as I'm doing this. I'll set that up for next time so it's more visible, but just for the sake of time, for now, I will not. Okay. So let's check out the swipes again. when Skulker does his swipe, or its swipe, it's got, I want to see what it looks like when it starts at its idle frame, because that's how it goes into the swipe. So it starts at an idle frame, and I don't think it does a swipe ready. I think it just goes right, yeah. So it just goes right into its swipe. It's got a, I guess this is the swipe ready frame. So this is a swipe ready, so it's about to do its attack. And there's the actual swipe. And these two frames are basically the same. I just moved the hands slightly for some overshooting in the animation. So it just looks a little bit more impactful. Don't. So we need a ready frame and the swipe. And ready frame and the swipe. So let's do the same thing for this guy. And what would a ready frame for this look like? It probably needs to be on its hind legs a little bit as it moves its arm out. And I do already have a frame. This one might be too much on its hind legs for the swipe. Maybe this would be okay. And the problem with having so many layers, I guess, is that copying them over to a new file is going to be a big pain. It's making me want to actually work in this file instead. Maybe I'll do that. Let me save this as my swipe mockup instead. Okay, so it raises up a little bit. I'm gonna keep its, actually, yeah, I'll keep its mouth open. In the ready frame. And let's say we're doing the, what does Skulker do? It does its left arm first. All right, let's do the same thing then. Back arm. What would it be? So if it rears up, its face, it seems like its face would turn with the shoulder back in the direction that the back arm is moving. So I'll probably have to do that. I'll have to turn the face a little bit, which is why I put the face on the head frame, just to make that a little bit easier. This is going to be very rough, everybody. Just a warning. All I'm doing is blocking out the general motion. So I know it looks bad, but that's okay.
It looks great, Sandy.
So supportive, Michael. Thank you. I don't really care too much about the details of that. All right, now we've got to move the hand up. So it's basically the same pose, or the same like hand shape, that same claw. I just want it facing upward instead. I can't really use this. A lot of times what I'll do is like rotate or something to get a different angle in a similar pose. In this one I can't really do that, but what I do know is that the thumb being on the inside of when looking at this angle means that the thumb also needs to be on the inside of the hand with the palm facing toward you. So let's just shift the angle of these claws. And do a quick rough pose. Okay, something like that, I guess. Again, it's going to be very rough because I'm just trying to block out the motion. I don't really care about the details of like the hands and stuff yet. Shrunk it down to make it a little bit smaller. Something like that. It also should not have too much detail or color underneath because the light is not hitting the palm, right? The light's coming from the top. So the highlight should be up here. That's where all the red's gonna be. But that's what the blue is for. So I can use the blue to highlight the palm a little bit so it doesn't get totally washed out in the black. And here's the elbow, right? So, okay, so something like that. The front arm needs to do something else too. Well, actually, maybe it shouldn't look too active because this left arm's not going to swipe. So it shouldn't look like it's ready to do a whole lot. And honestly, maybe this pose, maybe it is going to end up needing to be moved back a little bit more. We'll see. Let's block out the actual swipe, like something like that. Let's block out the actual swipe though first, before changing anything there. So okay, there's the ready pose, and then the actual swipe, and I'm gonna pull the head from this walk frame because it's facing toward the camera a little bit more, which is what I want. Let me remove the head from this body. And when doing stuff like this too, I really don't care about details like all the little faces. I'll worry about that stuff later. So I would just, whatever, like just to get the angle in there, I'll maintain a shape that looks similar to what those faces were, but I don't actually care, like, for now, what's going on in the detail. Okay, and then it's the back arm that is doing the swipe. Right, and then the whole body's probably gonna have to shift even more. I think, wow, look at, it's all beady-eyed now. I think the head's gonna have to face the camera even more probably because this swipe arm is going to really push the shoulder and the angle. So for big bosses like this, with big limbs, I do just use the blobby blockout method. There are a few methods that pixel artists use when making sprites. Some of them will outline, so like, I really hope this drawing doesn't haunt me, like that red and blue cat. But some will outline, right? They'll do something like this to get their shapes down. you know, like you're just drawing on doing lines on paper, just illustrating. Right, something like that. And then the other approach, which is what I prefer to do with big sprites, is just blobs. So I'll take my pen, make it bigger, and I'll do stuff like this. To me, this is a lot faster because it allows me to see the silhouette of the character more immediately, I think, than I would if I was trying to do the outline approach. Oops. Anyway, I don't even know if this is interesting or helpful, but I'm just explaining why for this back arm I'm just making a huge blob. And that is why. Let me just check Discord to see if we have any questions. Too much on its hind legs, as in too large of a hitbox? Reggie asks. No,
Seems like YouTube's getting the signal. I don't know if the stream is actually going again. There we go. I think we're back.
We're back.
Let's
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, let's keep an eye on the chat and see if they can verify. But from my perspective, I think we're good.
Back. Okay, good. Yay. Sorry, that was incredibly weird. All I did was open up another promotion file and OBS just shut down. Don't know why. Should not have been a big deal, but
His graphics are too intense.
Yes.
I think you need to dial it back.
The sprites are too high res. Okay, so to answer that question, I just meant that this pose seemed like it was rearing too far back for the swipe, but now that I think about it, I actually might prefer to use that, and I think I actually might. So let's bring it over to what I was working on and just replace that front arm. The head. Move the head a little more. So, yeah, it's tricky. It's hard to know until the animation's a little further along what would be better, but this actually might be more impactful as a swipe frame. So let's stick with it for now. I'm gonna move this one up a little bit. And again, super messy, but that is part of the process. So now we're back here. Do you have any tips on studying old sprites? Asks Lemtopia. I don't know if I have any tips for studying them per se. I have some good resources. Spriter's resource is a great library. spriters-resource.com. It's one of the most comprehensive sprite libraries on the internet, and I would say that was my best teacher when learning how to do pixel art in general. It was invaluable. So if you're just looking for a place to find old sprites, I would highly recommend Spriter's Resource. As far as studying them goes, I guess just, going to your favorite game and opening the sprites and animations that you can find in your pixel art software of choice and seeing how they're broken down. Seeing how they use outlines or don't use outlines, getting a sense for like color count and restrictions if you're trying to emulate the style, proportions like the height of characters, like Mina is only, she's like a 16 pixel character, but Mega Man is what, like 24 tiles or something. Shovel Knight's about the same, I think. I'm probably off, and then Waz is gonna get mad at me for saying that. But yeah, I guess he would have to be more. He's definitely taller than this. But anyway, as far as studying goes, yeah, just pick them apart and do your best to kind of emulate styles that you see in, like, I don't know why I'm doing this. All right, back to the attack.
That's a great Shovel Knight, though. It's got like a Waz beard.
Right. Shovel Knight from memory definitely has a Waz beard. Scribbled Slate says if you're looking for movement reference, I cannot read today. Magna Malo from Monster Hunter Rise has a good swipe animation. Oh, let me check that out. That could be cool. I know a bunch of Bloodborne bosses have pretty cool swipe animations too. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. It does have some cool swipes. Maybe I can find a video of it. Well, I'll have to sift through this later, but thank you for that reference. I will take a look at that later on as I'm polishing this up. Let's see, got a few questions that I didn't see when the stream froze. But Red Yacht said, it's good to know my janky method of working with pixel art by hacking it apart and putting it back together is industry standard. Absolutely. It's all hacks and mess until it's not. Cisco Raglan Jr., one of the hardest parts about animating for me is keeping track of the specific details as things move around. I like to revert to the silhouette and animate that, and then draw on the details afterward. Yep, you can totally do that. I mean, the blobby method that I'm using is basically doing that too. It's just keeping everything, about just the shapes until we actually get the animation down, and we're happy with the forms and the way that everything's moving. One thing I know is that I'm gonna want this whole thing to move back a little bit in animation. So I think for this boss, I want a double ready frame. Boop, boop, which would mean do that. I think this is just gonna sell the impact a little better. And then the front arm, probably move forward a little, jump. I don't want it to move forward too much though. Yeah, that looks like too much. Yeah, and again, this is kind of what I was assuming might happen earlier, but this does seem like it's rearing too far back on its hind legs, which it might be good for impact. I just don't want the hitbox to get too huge. Let's see how much bigger this is than the top of the boss. Yeah, so it's like sticking out almost a whole tile. Might be okay, but I'll have to see what's best later. And then I guess if the hand is reared up like that, then the swipe hand would be facing, I guess it would be facing downward. Got the thumb down here. Probably won't actually see the thumb because it would be obscured. Here is the elbow. And then the shoulder, because there's so much overreach, the shoulder would be sticking out like that. So you would actually be able to see the full shoulder, I think, in this pose. There's the tricep. I think the angle's a little wrong. Pretty sure I actually have a, of course I do, I have a front-facing version of this guy. Let's hope the stream does not freeze when I open this file up. Yay, it didn't. So I can just pull this claw from here. That angle works. Steal that claw from there and then there, something like that. Right. The angle's still a little bit weird, but again, I'll fix that later on. And then I want an overshoot frame, just a little bit. And I'll probably overshoot the entire forearm for this. Doot, doot. And then its front arm is going to have to move 2 to support the shifting weight. I'm going to remove remove it from the sprite here. Did I? Oh, I did. I accidentally merged a layer. Man. All right, hold on. This happens sometimes because I have some hotkeys that are a little finicky. Sorry. Let me just backtrack a little bit. Back arm. Got the front arm. And the hand and the front arm is going to shift a little bit in a way that might be somewhat similar to the new angle of the back arm. Didn't shift enough to warrant a new frame, I don't think, actually. So that's fine. Yeah, that's not right. Hold on here. So what I'm trying to do now is this swipe frame needs to resolve back to this idle frame in a way that looks natural. So right now I'm flipping between the two, and I'm not totally happy with how that looks yet. And I don't think actually I want the position of the hand to really move all that much, because it'll look too jarring when it resolves back to idle. Maybe I'll just leave it, and I'll just move the top of the arm. So without reference, this is definitely tricky, but let's see. The weight's gonna shift forward, which means there's more pressure on the front arm. So this elbow should move down a little bit. And I think part of the problem is the body needs to move down too, actually. Yeah, that helps. I probably should move forward a little bit as well, actually. Okay, I'm gonna get that overshoot back in the back arm. Okay, so that's obviously extremely rough, but sort of what we're going for. Yeah, definitely not happy with the angle of the hand and like a whole bunch of stuff. So it's gonna take some fixing. And with a sprite this big, it's gonna take a little while, but we're getting somewhere. Let's see if anyone asked anything. Do the bosses have bespoke death animations, or do they use a standardized kind of death, like the classic vibrate in place and dissolve method? They do have bespoke death animations. It's not really an animation that's bespoke as much as a death frame. They all have skeletons. And I think we've shown some of these before. But when a boss dies, let me open one up. I think this is a good example. When a boss dies, their idle frame, or I guess they actually do have a death frame. The death frame happens, and then their body burns up, and it leaves behind a skeleton of the boss, and then the skeleton explodes into bones that you can pick up. This is one of the first mock-ups I did for that type of death animation. So it's not showing you the death frame because I hadn't made one yet at this time, but it's showing you kind of what it looks like when the sprite burns up and you just see the skeleton. And so yeah, all the bosses in the game, for the most part, do something like that. Because we had to justify why there are so many bones left behind, right? You gotta see that the boss has a skeleton. And then you're rich. I mean, a better question would be, how would you study old sprites? Yeah, I think I pretty much covered that as far as studying sprites goes. It's just about just opening them up in a program and analyzing proportions and color counts and whether there's anti-aliasing in the sprite and how they do it, things like that. Just practice.
Sandy, what old sprites do you like?
What old sprites do I like?
Yeah. What old games have sprites that you're like, that's some good sprites right there?
That's
do you
really
have a favorite?
I know it shouldn't be, but it's really putting me on the spot because my answer has changed a lot over the years. I think what I referenced when I first started pixel art was very different than what I would now. For Mina, it's definitely a lot of like Link's Awakening, Oracle of Seasons and Ages, Dragon Quest Monsters, and Dragon Quest 3 on Game Boy. Those are like the big ones. Survival Kids, I think, is really cool. That has really great art. But
That's a great game.
It is a good game. It's very unique. I also really like a lot of games that have higher res sprites, like Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure on Game Boy Advance, obviously, as in the title, is I think one of the best looking pixel art games out there. It is amazing and does not get enough attention. Like, look at these backgrounds. That's crazy. It's so good. All the animations are so good too. That's a game I highly recommend playing for anyone who just likes platformers. It's really fun. What else do I like? I mean, Dragon Quest is always nice. There are a lot of modern pixel art games that are incredibly good looking, like Rivals of Ether. Eastward is another one that's really good looking. One of the games that got me interested in pixel art to begin with was Nuclear Throne, and that's still a game that I hold in high regard, just as one that does a lot with low res tiny sprites that are really cute and have really fun animations and a lot of great visual effects, and it's just a good game. It's just a really good game. How about you, Michael? Do you have any favorite sprites or games with pixel art?
Now I'm put on the spot.
Mhm.
Eastward is super great. That one I think is a great modern sprite worked game. Also, you mentioned Game Boy Advance stuff. Reminded me, there's the Astro Boy game on Game Boy Advance by Treasure.
Oh yeah,
So good.
that looks awesome.
Looks so good. Everything Treasure does is pretty good. Um, every Metal Slug game looks amazing. It's kind of its own category though. Like no one should ever do sprite work like that.
Yeah.
Also, also I heard somebody recently argue that those games are pretty but not necessarily fun, and that's
Yeah.
reframing my whole worldview.
I think I can understand where that's coming from, though. I mean, they were just made as coin eaters in the arcade, right?
Yeah.
They're not super.
So I'm wondering if it didn't look as good, what I would think of it. But then maybe that's just saying that that sprite work is so good it makes the game more fun.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly pretty to look at, and it is a game that I've put a lot of time into.
Yeah.
Or game
And
series.
then going back to the era, I feel like Star Tropics, I feel like it was more colorful than a lot of games of that era was, and did a top-down perspective, and it just seems like it had a unique art style.
Totally.
Sprite works great. I love sprites. I think I most social media usage I used early on was just to find sprite artists.
Oh yeah, like on Twitter.
Yeah, I think I like found before even working here, I had found your sprite art.
Oh
And
no way.
like, oh yeah, yeah. And there's just like lots of sprite artists. Sprite art's cool, and I feel like it's game dev adjacent enough that people who make pixel art and do other kind of sprite work are very active on social media.
Yeah,
So
Twitter is definitely the place to be for pixel artists who want to get their work seen, I think. It certainly used to be the case. I'm not sure if it still is, but I don't know of any better place to go.
We'll see in a couple years if it's still the dominant thing, or things are always changing.
Yeah.
I don't know, MySpace like 15 years ago. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, it used to be Tumblr. That's actually where I started posting my pixel art when I was first beginning, and then they just became obsolete.
Yeah, there was a site for a while. I think they're defunct now, called like Lo-Fi or something, or like low spec, something like that. And it was just like cool. It was like a cool site and community about just pixel artwork, and I don't think it ever took off, but it was a really cool thing for a few years.
Lo-fi?
Something like that. I can't remember. It's I think faded into obscurity at this point.
It's interesting. I know there's Pixel Joint. That's still a popular one, I believe.
Low spec. That's what it was.
Low spec. Oh, okay.
Like it's still up. Yeah.
Cisco said YCG also did an art dump for all Shovel Knight games. I would study the heck out of those for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That is true. Yeah, all the Shovel Knight sprites are available. I think a lot of them are actually on Spriter's resource. So if you wanted to check those out, feel free. And I know that Woz put a whole zip file together of the actual like source files that we used to make most of those. So there you can see all the mess and mock-ups that he and I put together.
And people are encouraged to use those. It's, I think, released under Creative Commons.
Yes, correct.
So it's available for use. And I think a lot of them are promotion files.
You're going to need promotion to open them.
Or Sprite opens flick files as well, though you may lose layer data.
That's right. Yeah. I think, were you the one that told me that recently?
I think so.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, because you hate Sprite and were just like telling me how much you hate Sprite, and I had to defend it. No, everyone, you have a different tool that you use.
I started with graphic scale. I was forced into using promotion by Woz.
By Woz.
Yeah. He was like, no, this is what we use, and you have to use this or else.
But they're all just different tools. People can, whatever they like is the right answer.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. As long as it gets the job done. It's all that you need. Let's try and do this other arm. Super, super rough once again. This one's tricky because the elbow is going to be kind of out of view for some of it if the hand is blocking where the, like, how far back the arm goes. I don't know if I want to duplicate the whole head. Yeah. Never mind. Forget that. All right, so I'm trying to get both swipes in. However, I need to make sure that they can both start from idle. The beauty of reusing frames. Oh yeah. Matthias asks, how many layers do you use in your graphic program for normal enemies and for big boss enemies? Does it make sense to separate body, head, limb always? No, it doesn't, and I rarely do. Like for this guy, I definitely wouldn't. This is all just one layer. Maybe for the head, but even then I probably wouldn't. I would just like separate it like that, and then when I draw the new frame, I would just plop it on top, because you know you're not working with too many pixels here, so it's easy enough to just move things around. You know, if I'm just like, if I'm not doing a whole lot of shifting to change the perspective, it doesn't take that much. I definitely don't need to make a whole new to separate the layers and do all that work. See, we already, you know, it's already done. We already have that shift in perspective again. Yeah, I'm just doing it because this boss just has so many big body parts, and its animation set is pretty complicated. So for like these walks and stuff. Let's see. Maybe a quick hop of the forearms, because bones are money. Yep, bones are money in this world. Sorry, I'm so behind on chat. I apologize, everyone. Let's see. Yeah, I like to retweet various games and upcoming projects, especially pixel art ones, because I know that most of my followers like to see that stuff. So if I appreciate it, I assume you all will too, or I hope you all will. Speaking of which, Go Mecha Ball just came out today, and that is made by a team of really wonderful people, very talented people, and I highly recommend everybody check it out. It's like a twin stick shooter. It's 3D, it's not pixel art, but it's made by a really small team of like 4 people, and it looks gorgeous. So, and I have played the the beta or the demo of it, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, go check it out if you can. Didn't you play some of that, or play the demo of that, Michael?
Of Go Mecha Ball?
Yeah.
I don't know if I played that one, unless it was at Day of the Devs or something. But I do remember it seems like just yesterday it was a gray boxed game with
Yeah.
cool rolling mechanic, and then suddenly there's screenshots and it's so colorful and polished.
I
And
know. I can't believe it's
suddenly it's
out. That's
Yeah,
nuts.
it's weird. It's weird how you, especially indie games, you can anticipate for what feels like a decade, and then suddenly they're out.
Yep. That's how it works. I mean, ideally. Ideally.
Yeah, but everyone should go play it. I think it's on Game Pass, and if you got a few bucks to buy it, you should also do that and have fun.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It should be a good time. I think I have... There we go. This is a better head turn pose for what I'm looking for these swipes. So for this swipe, it's going to lead into the other shoulder. Messy.
While you're working on that, Sandy, and going back to our Sprite conversations, did the Blaster Master cover art ever get looked at when this was getting designed, or is that
not at
a
all?
Happy coincidence?
Yep, total coincidence. It's funny that you said that because I had never seen that boss. Actually, I've never played Blaster Master, but
Oh yeah.
the resemblance was uncanny. Yeah, I wasn't a big arcadey gamer when I was a kid. I played a lot of RPGs. I was mostly a JRPG kid.
No wonder you mentioned a lot of Dragon Quest earlier in the sprites you referenced.
Yeah, I did when I was in middle school. My friends and I did sprite rips of Chrono Trigger and Suikoden, and just edited those to make like goofy animated GIFs to send to each other. So that was like my first attempt at pixel art. It wasn't really like pixel art. It was just, you know, manipulating stuff. But
how'd you group sprites back then?
MS Paint, man.
Grab?
No, there were like forums for specific RPGs where there were repositories of sprites that we could grab.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Good times, good times.
Oh yeah.
And again, this is super messy, but as an example of what I'm gonna do later, you know, I'm blocking in this off-white blob right here because I know that if this is the elbow in the base sprite has this little bone sticking out right there. And so as I'm polishing this up later, I know that it'll go like that. Bloop. Now, because the angle is a little bit different than in the idle, I might, you know, edit it a little bit. But this is how I go from process to polish. for the most part on a big sprite like this. Just FYI. Okay, so I think this the second swipe is pretty cool because if Mina's like standing down here, then, you know, it'll definitely hit her. I think the first one is not right though. I think it needs to overshoot a lot more. It's like stopping in a weird spot. So I'm gonna edit that. I think it needs to really like go way out here even more. Oh my God. Wasn't enough impact for my liking. So the way I'm going to do the smear too, maybe I can block this out now, is I would usually start the smear, what frame is that on? Back arm. I would start the smear up here where the hand, the origin of the attack is for the hand, and then drag it down in the arc that I want the attack to have. So this is basically the entire hitbox for this attack.
I got a question for you, Sandy. You're talking about hitboxes.
Oh yeah.
So you get the spec, which has a lot of guidelines for what the move set should be and all that. But then when you're actually making the animations and thinking about the arcs and the poses, are you defining what the hitbox would be somewhat dependent on the animation you're making, or are you trying to stick strictly to like hitbox guidelines that you and Alec discussed previously?
That's a good question. I definitely always do my best to stick to the hitbox guidelines that are laid out in the GDD. That is what the GDD is for. Really is, you know, these sketches that Alec did over here are really just for me to understand like the sizing of things that I'm supposed to follow. It's not really a reflection of anything else. It's like the smear should be about this big, but and you know the boss should be about this big, but I don't have to actually follow, you know, the exact motion or anything of these. However, when you see something like this hitbox here in the spider walk, let me open that back up. Spider. I think it should still be in this one. Yeah, like this one, I really needed to make sure that the feet of the spider fit this hitbox size as close as I could get. You know, like obviously you have this bit of space here that's not being filled in. But when I look at that, I'm like, well, his feet aren't big blocks, right? Like I can't literally fit, like I can't make a foot that makes any sense with this character. That fills, you know, every pixel of the hitbox that's laid out here. But I tried to make sure that the angle of the foot was like wide enough to cover most of that area. I splayed the toes out so it covers as much as I can here, like that, right? And so for the most part, it's filled. And because the feet move, I know that it's going to be covering this space at, you know, certain points. Same with like these hands. This is actually something that I talked about with Alec, specifically because we were talking about how this area is not being filled because I made the hands, you know, only this size. I did play with the idea of making them bigger. It looked really weird. Something that maybe we'll have to go back and adjust later, but for now I think we resolved with this being fine. And these sparks that fly up kind of cover that hitbox area, right? So I think that might be indication enough that Mina will get damaged if she ends up going there. So yeah, good question. I do adhere to these hitboxes pretty religiously, or at least I try to. But you know, sometimes I get carried away with the art, and I just, you know, I know that like when making a game, the goal is to make sure that everything like plays well and like, you know, all the hitboxes and everything are deliberate and make sense, but I can still get carried away sometimes with trying to make something as cool as possible, and that not always lining up exactly. So I might get in trouble for it sometimes, but it happens. Anyway, look, we got some swipes. They still need a lot of work. I'm probably going to spend the rest of the day polishing these up, but yeah, and I'm still not super happy with the left arm swipe. But for the most part, this is what I would be doing for this boss. This is the process of blocking out these animations, and then getting those little faces in there, making sure that everything lines up with the other animations, and all that good stuff. I like this pose. I think this came out pretty well. Like the sinews of the arm. You can see the shoulder here, and you got the tricep, the elbow right there. Here's where the bicep would be. And then the forearm coming in for that sinewy attack.
Nice.
Yeah.
This guy definitely looks like we could get John Leguizamo to voice him in a live-action Mina movie.
Just like Violator. That would be amazing. Has there ever been a Sprite game that's voice acted? I'm really curious now. There probably
Pixel
has.
Spray? I don't know.
Like a point and click or something.
Point and clicks for sure. The first game I worked on, The Day of the Tentacle,
oh yeah,
was sprite point and click, and
it was voice acted.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to play that game. It's on a lot of lists I've seen of like some of the best narrative in games.
Yeah, it's a pretty short point and click with some good puzzles. It's a classic.
Mm-hmm. Regiot asks, do these sorts of attacks do normal knockback, or would they be able to, say, punch Mina across the room? I mean, this guy's big. Probably punch Mina across the room. It's going to depend on the attack. I'd say within this fight, we'll probably use both regular knockback and we have a big knockback as well. There's like a big frog enemy that we deliberately use. I think this is what we created big knockback for, actually. But its attacks are pretty pretty large. Let me see if I can open it up. And if Mina gets hit by these, she gets thrown back pretty far. This is one of the first sprites I ever did for Mina. I think this might be the first enemy sprite I did for Mina, actually. Long time ago. And this one took a while because it has so many different angles. I was so sick of this guy by the time we were done. Look at this. It's got it's got a walk from multiple angles. It's got thrusts. It's got a big swing. I think it does. I think it can swing at like, how many angles? It's like a bunch of different swing arcs. Oh yeah, I had to make this. This is for the Bayou area, and we haven't revisited this in a long time, so it'll be fun to go back and take a look at all these guys again.
They're perfect, Sandy.
Just the way they are. Darktone says, isn't there a trinket for knockback? Yeah, there is a trinket you can equip that reduces Mina's knockback. Red Yacht says, I'm disquieted by this guy having what looks like the middle ground between paws, hands, and insect claws. Oh yeah. Definitely all of the above. Let me open up. Yeah, anyway. Is there a trinket that increases the knockback you take? Oh, increases. That would be interesting. I don't think we have that, though. Not yet. I'm glad you learned a lot, Cisco. Yeah, it's funny because this was not always my style. I definitely, going into, when I started pixel art, I don't even know. I mean, I don't know how to describe my style, but some things about it were that I never did black outlines for my sprites because most of what I was referencing and learning from were modern pixel art games. So at the time, then this was like, I don't know, it was over 10 years ago now. It's like 2014 or something. At the time, it was kind of the thing to like not use black outlines in games. And then Shovel Knight came out and made everybody love black outlines again. And then I joined Yacht Club and I had to try and learn Waza style. And so for the next handful of years, I was working referencing like NES sprites and Waza sprites, which I'll do that, the black outline retro thing. And so that became part of my style. And then on Mina, again, referencing, a bunch of older sprites, a lot of Game Boy Color stuff, they all have black outlines. And so my style just kind of evolved over the years, both by necessity and out of a newfound love for retro sprite work. Yeah, that was Big Frog or Bloat Neck. Big Frog is what we still call it internally. That was the name before Bloat Neck, just so we had some way to refer to it. But officially, that is a Bloat Neck enemy. Does Yacht Club have any older era industry veterans, or is everyone relatively young? There are a lot of, well, I mean, I wouldn't say that like there are a lot of older people, but we're all kind of around the same age. I know like Bridget and Eli are on the younger side of the crew. I'm around the same age as a lot of the original Yacht Club members. But most of the Yacht Club team came from way forward. And I mean, they'd been there for years working on Double Dragon and Thor, Batman, Brave and the Bold, some Shantae games. Sean's, I think, first directed project was Boy and His Blob. So I guess you could call them all veterans. Before Shovel Knight, they'd
Not the '90s Boy in His Blob though.
No, not the original.
Way Forward.
Way Forward remake one, yeah. And then Michael, you came from Double Fine. How long were you at Double Fine?
7 years.
Oh, wow.
Minute. A hot minute.
Yeah, man. That's a long time.
But yeah,
so
I think
I'd
a
call
lot
you
of
a
us.
veteran.
I don't know what that means anymore. But
That's fair.
Without giving away employee information too much, I would say we have people that kind of run the gamut. But I think a lot of us are about, I would say, grew up playing the kinds of games that we are making now. I would say, like these '90s inspired games. A lot of us were pretty young in that era.
Yeah, definitely.
But we're certainly all over the place, I would say. But yeah, I certainly have an appreciation from this era of games made by the generation of developers before us.
Baz says, I think the most interesting thing about this guy is all of his movements look weighty. He moves as big as he looks. That is great to hear. That is definitely something I hope to get across. So that's great. Do you ever make any sprites early on in a game's development that you have to come back to once you have a better feel for the game style? Sometimes we try not to do that as much as possible. I will say I definitely look back at some of the first sprites that were made and I see things that I would like to change. But unless they're like really egregious or affect gameplay, I probably won't, just for the sake of time and getting the game done. But yeah, everybody, I think we're probably going to wrap it up in the next few minutes. If anyone has any last remaining questions, feel free to toss them out. But otherwise, we'll probably call it soon. Sorry we didn't get more done on the swipe, but that's just this process is longer and more involved for bosses of this size. So
you're literally going in and adjusting every single pixel for this guy. It's a time-consuming effort.
Yep.
But he's gonna be so cool.
I sure hope so. I think so. I'm excited to see that spider leg animation in game.
Yeah. By cool, I actually mean this guy is like very creepy and gross and scares me a little bit. Yes. And I'm glad that he's like low pixel resolution, because any higher fidelity, I think I'd get very creeped out looking at this guy.
I want to see this in 3D now.
You like wouldn't look out of place in a game like Nightmare Creatures or something.
Oh yeah. Oh, what was that game? What was that old platformer? Where you played as a boy with a dog and you were chased by these like all black nightmare creatures.
Whoa, I don't think I know that one.
Oh man.
What era?
It was really hard. I think Genesis or I think it was on Super Nintendo too. Super Nintendo. Boy dog. Heart of Darkness. Yeah, thank you, Shadowhog. It was Heart of Darkness. I played that a lot.
Oh, PlayStation, but it was 2D. Oh, that's one of the
cinematic
platformers. Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I was pretty off there, but yeah, that was a cool game. That creeped me out when I was a kid, but I couldn't stop playing it and dying. Oh yeah, PlayStation, of course. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks Bridget for joining in chat, and Alec, and thanks Michael for being in Discord with me, and thank you all for joining and having fun talking about sprites. It's not something that I get to do a whole lot, so just because I'm so busy making them. But
I
appreciate the rare opportunities. So see all of you back on Discord, and hope you're all excited to see more of the game in the coming months. Take it easy, everybody.